Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think our guest today, who is a first time Planet Pearl Party Line guest, is the amazing Nancy Marchant, who is joining us all the way from the Netherlands. I think Nancy, you get the furthest guest. We've had guests from the UK, but I think you are our
I'm farther.
first continental guest to join
Mhm.
us. So, and for just a really gorgeous book, Knitting Fresh Brioche. And of course, your name is not new to people who have knit and become obsessed with brioche, which I think anybody who knits brioche becomes completely and totally obsessed. It's like becomes an addiction. Can you explain addiction to brioche? Because clearly you suffer from it and you don't care about getting cured.
There's a rhythm that happens when you're knitting brioche that it's just very, very relaxing. It is the yoga of knitting. I mean, they say that knitting is the new yoga, but this stitch has the rhythm that just is so relaxing. The problem is for most people is you have to get to the point where it's comfortable to work in brioche. And that can take a while, but once you're there, it's an incredible stitch just to knit.
Yeah,
Not and let alone the fact that it looks so beautiful. It's also just the way you work it and the rhythm that you create while you're working it is just very, very comfortable. It's really, yeah, that has a lot to do with it, I think.
yeah, and and
Rhythm.
I think what people forget because I is once you've been knitting for a while, you don't really think about it too much. But when you first started knitting, everything felt so clumsy in your hands and you didn't think you'd ever get it. I've never met anybody who just picked up needles and had, perfect tension and beautiful knitting right off the bat. But there's that moment where something clicks between your brain and your hands and it becomes relaxing and repetitive and very zen like when you're knitting. And I think the same thing happens in brioche, but there's that kind of initial, oh my god, I'm never going to get this kind of thing.
It happens mostly to people that have knit actually for a long time. Very experienced knitters struggle with it more than people that have just knit for, say, a few months or even a year.
Wow, oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's because of the just the technique. You have to do things that go against what you've sort of felt comfortable with, and once you get over that, then you can just fly with it. But I mean, I've taught it so many times, and it's especially knitters that are, they've been knitting for 50 years, and they know how to do everything. But boy, brioche hits them, and they can really struggle. Not everybody, but I mean that does happen quite a bit with very, very experienced knitters.
Oh, well, so then we should encourage newer knitters to take this on before they get so entrenched, in knitting cables and stockinette and all the things that they do where they're not really thinking about it. They should take this on before they get too comfortable
Yeah.
with all the other skills of knitting. And I think this is one of those things, the brioche stitch, where most people who've been knitting for a while can look at a piece of knitwear and see the technique and how it was done. But this is one of those things that if you've never knit brioche, you look at it and think, how the heck did they do this? Because you can't just kind of look at it and figure out the technique. You actually have to either see it done or take a class or be good at learning in two dimensions or watch videos. But it's not one of those things that you can look at it and kind of figure out on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
You know
So,
what the difference is? Oh,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say the difference, or what makes brioche brioche, is the way that you work a stitch and you slip a stitch. It's always a pair of stitches. And so when you work a stitch and you slip a stitch, you're basically dividing the fabric into two different layers. You work a stitch and then you save the next one because you slip it.
Yeah.
And so in the row following, then you have to work that stitch that you slipped, and you slip the ones that you worked. That's one of the principles of brioche knitting. But what makes it brioche is when you slip that stitch. Normally you slip a stitch and you carry the working yarn across the front, or you carry it across the back so you can get to the next stitch.
Yeah.
With brioche, you carry the yarn over the stitch, and you give the stitch a little shawl over its head. And so
Oh,
that's what you see. You see those little V's in the purl columns. You see those sort of
y-
V formations. That's that slip stitch that's knit together with the stitch that it's below. You know, you've got the slip stitch and then you've got that little shawl. And you knit those two together in the next row, the slip stitch with its shawl. And you're always knitting these slip stitches with their shawls. You're always knitting or purling them together. And that's what makes it brioche.
oh,
Did you get that?
interesting. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, and because I know that kind of
Yeah, I
create.
mean, you have,
Are you there?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because I know like
yes,
there are several ways to do like double knitting, and there's the way where because you're creating that two sides where you're knitting, purling, and it's paired. But there's another way to do it where it's knit and slip, knit and slip, knit and slip, and you turn it around, and then you're working the slip stitch and slipping the worked stitches to create that. But so this is actually it's kind of that same theory, but by putting the loops around or the little
by
nooses
carrying the
around
yarn
the
over,
stitch.
you're connecting it. You're connecting the two layers
Yeah.
with yarn over. So
Yeah,
you
which
slip the
which is
stitch
what you
and
try
you
to avoid when you're doing regular double knitting. So,
exactly.
oh, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me now.
Yeah.
So, oh, yeah. And actually when we show pictures from the book, because there was one that really, really, really talked to me, and I thought, oh, I think I would like to try this. And I've been organizing my yarn collection in my library, and I've been on this total complete cleaning and organizational binge. And I was pulling out a bunch of Kid Silk Haze, and I was thinking, oh, I think I need to try this because I haven't knit brioche, but I will say it is the number one request that I get for doing videos on Planet Pearl's how-to channel. And
Mhm.
it's it's and people are like, please do videos on brioche. It's like, well, I don't knit brioche well yet. So now I'm all pumped up to learn. And Candy just said she doesn't see us, and I should have told you at the beginning, Candy, we don't have video today because with Nancy joining us from the Netherlands, the pull on the bandwidth was so disruptive when we did our little test session yesterday that we decided not to do video today because otherwise I would ask a question and you would be waiting for a minute or minute and a half to get an answer from Nancy. And it was a little weird. Just a little weird. So there's no video today, just the screen, which you should see right now, which is a blue background with knitting Fresh Brioche and the book cover on it.
And that's prettier than I am anyway.
Oh no, I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that.
Mm.
So let's do a little personal tour of the book, shall we? I think people want to see what's in it.
Fine.
Yeah, let's do that. So now what I really love about this is, I mean, not only does it have, designs for wraps and scarves in it, but it is an actual brioche stitch dictionary, which this is the first time I've ever seen anything like that. And given how, I mean, brioche is such a unique thing, is a stitch dictionary for brioche is all I can say is thank you because it's an awesome contribution, because most people have a lot of books that are pattern books,
Hmm.
project books in their library, but the stitch dictionaries are I've actually duplicated mine in my two houses because they're like the things I go to over and over and over again. And
Right.
to have a stitch dictionary for brioche, which there isn't, I think this is the only one on the planet as far as I know. I've never seen
I
one.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there are a few to be found in German books. There are just a few little stitches to be found, but nothing, no bulk of work at all anywhere that
Yeah.
I know of.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise you'd have to have 75 designs with different stitches in them. So a stitch dictionary, and I actually didn't know there were this many worked out designs for brioche. And and it's really a fabulous part of this book. So I just pulled some of the projects to kind of give everybody an idea of, obviously all these stitches are in the Stitch Dictionary, and I'm not showing 75 stitches today because we would be here for a really long time. And I don't have that long of a attention span, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so tell us about this. I just really love how, like, the contrast of the color, and this is something you just don't get anything in anything else but brioche, but the use of the variegated yarn and a more solid yarn, and how it creates this crazy texture and color palette. So tell us about this little project here.
I don't see it.
Oh,
I
it,
just
does everybody else see it? I just don't know if maybe you're having a delay. Oh, hang on. Oh, crap. Do you know why my screen turned itself off again? That happened last time too, which,
Oh, here it is.
yeah, that happened last time too. And
Okay.
we haven't figured out what's going on there. But all right, now you see it. So it's all good. Yeah. So, yeah. And Savannah Gal says, love the colors. So, which I agree that there's something about the heat in these colors that is just, it's like flames. You're wearing flames.
This
So,
is called the Ring of Fire.
oh, well, there you go.
That's the name of this cowl. It's called Ring of Fire, and this is a very luxurious yarn. That's for
Oh,
sure. It's handmaiden's maiden hair, and it's a mohair silk combination. And I made this cowl very luscious as well. I mean, it's very high so that it really drapes beautifully down your neck. And I think I should say, there are 75 stitches in, say, the Stitch Dictionary, and then there are 12 of these shawls and scarves. But I mean, the 75 stitches in the Stitch Dictionary, they're basically 75 scarves because they're all. I designed all of these. They weren't in existence before, and
wow.
when I first started to do these increases and decrease designs when I wrote my first book, but I just barely got started with it. And so when I finally got done with that first book, I just couldn't wait to start on this book because this was the most exciting thing I think that I'd ever started knitting or that I'd ever knit. And so I basically just started to take two color brioche and put increases and decreases spaced around the surface, you could say. And what happened are all of these designs then. And
Oh,
so, yeah, I agree that when you use yarns that, you buy these skeins of yarn that are absolutely beautiful in the skein. And then when you knit them, the colors just become very muddled. But if you set them against a background like I did with this cowl of just a plain, almost a plain background, you really highlight those sort of mottled color variegated yarns. It really brings them out a lot. This is one of my favorite pieces too, this Ring of Fire. I wear this a lot. And
it's so pretty, and I will bet people stop you and comment on it.
well, not in Holland, not in the
Oh,
Netherlands.
well, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I
They
forget where
do
you
in
live.
America. They don't here.
Yeah, if you were in Atlanta or something, people would stop you, but it's the South and we talk to strangers down here. So, yeah, so Candy says this is beautiful, which I agree. And Sherry wants to see a bigger image. And Sherry, you know how you're going to see a bigger image? You're going to either win the book or buy the book, and then you'll see a bigger image of this. So, you got two options there. So, Marino asks if this one is knitted in the round.
Yes,
Yeah, isn't
yes, it
that
is.
nice? Yeah, so
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah, it's just the colors really drew me on this one. And this is kind of what I think of now when I think of brioche is I think of the, kind of the two colors, but and I really didn't think about what happens when you use colors cuz this is just two colors that are very close to each other, right? This green
Exactly
one.
right. Yeah, it's a light green and a little bit darker green, but they're very, very close. But
Yeah. It just
yeah,
adds a little bit of depth to it without really, but still, I mean, shows off kind of that directional, dimensional design. And I never really thought about how you could do that with I mean, because the colors are pretty close on this one.
they're very close. They really are. But I
Yeah.
did just sort of want to give like a shade or a shadow to the pattern itself, and so it does look very, yeah, shadowed more than two colors. If you would knit this, say, in black and white, it would really look a lot different. It would be
Yeah.
very, very, very dramatic.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the cool thing about this book is, you could take any of those 75 designs and you could create a cowl or a scarf with them. And the fact that you do it where
Yeah.
we can see it like this, where it's done in high contrast, low contrast, variegated, hot colors, cool colors, as you can see what an incredible difference just that color selection makes in brioche, which I think is really more dramatic in brioche than just about any other kind of color knitting. Is
Well,
so
yeah, you're always using two colors with brioche. I mean, you can use a color variegated yarn where, it variegates from one color to the other, but basically you pick two yarns. And I mean, I have yet to discover two yarns that don't, or two colors that just don't work. I mean,
yeah.
you want to pick colors that you want to wear that go with this color of your skin, that, go with your coat or whatever. But it is almost difficult, I think, to pick two colors that don't work.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So, and a lot of people are very color shy, when they go to the yarn store and they want to pick out something to knit with. They're People get nervous about putting two colors together.
Yeah.
It takes confidence. It takes color confidence, and I think the nice thing about brioche is, I mean, you're kind of hard pressed to pick something that's not going to look great,
True. That's
right?
absolutely true.
Mary S says that this is fabulous, which I think we all agree with that. And John Quill says this reminds her of Breaking Waves, which I agree.
Yeah.
Even like the color, but it's this is just really, really very like soothing and tranquil. It's really pretty, which compared to, this, which, with the hot colors and the purple, and then
Yeah.
you look at this and you think, well, that can't, I mean, it's really crazy how different that that looks. And yeah, Savannah Gal says it's very calming color, which I agree. And I'm not usually a fan of green, but I just love this. It kind of makes you want to take a nap. later, later.
Oh, you're supposed to make you get your needles out.
Well, but I have to take a nap first, and then I'll get my needles out. So, but Cindy says she hasn't learned brioche knitting yet, and she wants to know if it's very difficult to learn, and can you use this for like garments as well?
You, of course, you can use this for garments, but the one thing that you have to remember about brioche, this two-color brioche, it's three-dimensional, so it makes a thicker fabric than normal, say, stockinette. And so if you would make a sweater, and if you would use brioche on your arms, for example, your
Oh,
arms are going to be thicker.
yeah.
And I mean, saying that at the same time, if you use a thinner yarn, you can make the fabric thinner. But if you say use 4-ply, this is going to be twice as thick as if you made just a stockinette sweater from the same 4-ply yarn. So
Yeah,
I mean, you
but if you use this like for jacket fronts, like an open cardigan, where
absolutely,
and then use the like plain stockinette or a different textured stitch on the sleeves and the back,
sure.
right?
And
So,
yeah, or use this just on a collar, make a big collar, that make a plain sweater, make a great big cowl collar coming down. I mean, it'd be beautiful.
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And Savannah Gal says she's always cold, so the double layer's fine for her. But Candy suggests taking your craftsy class, which we'll talk about later. And she says you'll be a pro at the end, which is the highest compliment. So Sherry wants to know, how did it get the name brioche?
Oh, that's a good question. When I first started investigating this stitch, I wrote an article in 1992
Oh
for Vogue
my, you were
Knitting
a
magazine.
child.
I wasn't a child, maybe some of you were, but I wrote this article, and it was very well received, but that just sort of ended it for me. But then in 2005, Pam Allen asked me to basically write the article again for Vogue, or for Interweave Knits
Mhm.
magazine. So I did that, and it's when I wrote that article that I really started to try to find out more about this stitch. And there isn't a culture in the world that claims it. You know how Estonia has their newt,
Yeah.
and Scandinavia has their stranded knitting patterns and things like that, but nobody claimed brioche. You'll see brioche articles in a lot of different museums, but they're mostly machine made,
Oh.
or they're just one color brioche. And so because of that, there isn't much written about it. But I did find in a book from 1840, I think it was Miss May's knitting and web book or some, I don't, one of these really old little English books that women used to carry around in their bags. And it has a little cushion in there. And evidently people in England, families went down to Tunisia and Morocco, and they came back with these big cushions that evidently looked like brioche cakes. Brioche is the word for cake in France. It also is for those specific brioche cakes in France, but brioche actually means cake. And so they came back with these big cushions that looked like cakes that were made with this stitch. And so in this little book, they have a little brioche cushion, but they also have things that are made with the brioche stitch. So I think that's where the name came from.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now that's making me a little hungry. So now I'm tired and hungry. So, yeah,
Oh,
there you go. So, and and I love this, and actually the background on this is really pretty too. But the
yeah.
where you kind of see a different version of that leaf pattern and how just a little more difference between the colors. Like this is very close. This has a little bit more contrast, and what the difference is. Yeah, and Pat says this is so delicate, and I think that's one of those things that, usually when I think of brioche, I think of that thicker fabric, and I don't really think about what would happen if you did brioche like in kid silk or something, something
This is
really light.
yeah.
Oh,
This is kid silk haze, and then it was knit on a size 7 needle. So it really opened up the brioche. Normally when you think of brioche, I think you do think of this cushier sort of fabric that's very three-dimensional.
yeah.
And this is knit so that it's really opened up. You see those the purl sort of ditches. You see those almost as much as you see the knit columns in the light color.
Yeah, and
So
you can see like on her shoulder, that's
yeah,
on the right side of the page, you can see through it. You can actually see that her dress underneath it. And it was not something I ever really thought about in terms of brioche. And yeah, this is getting a lot of love in the room. And
yeah.
and Sherry says it's fluttery like a butterfly, which I agree. I agree. And Savannah
Well,
Gal wrote, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say we have a knit along on Ravelry. This is called Willow, and we just started a knit along on the 1st of February. There are a lot of people that are starting to knit this shawl, and a lot of them they're not real experienced brioche knitters, but they're going to try it, and they're trying it also even with the mohair, which is also a tricky yarn to use. And I have to say they're coming along fine. They all tried it out with other yarns and to make sure that they got the pattern down, and then they started with the Kid Silk Haze. But uh, yeah, it looks a lot more difficult than it is. But again, you have to get the technique down, and then it's really not difficult at all. It's very logical, and it's sort of these leaves just sort of flow out of your needles.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because Savannah Gal was asking if it's appropriate for a first time brioche knitter.
I would say it's better to maybe make something a little simpler, but
Yeah.
it's certainly not difficult. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm a graphic designer. And I mean, this is it's like I said, you have to get how to work two color brioche, you have to get that down, and then you just add increases and decreases,
Yeah.
just
So
like normal knitting,
so
increases
it
and decreases.
so if you're new to brioche, you probably want to practice on a like like a very large swatch or scarf that isn't done in a sticky or slippery yarn
Well,
where
yeah, you want sticky yarn. Well, not as sticky as mohair,
yeah,
but you
that's what
don't.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, you don't want slippery yarns when you do brioche, actually,
Yeah. So
because
Yeah, the thing with the Kid Cell K is this kind of a mohair yarn is ripping out
Oh
is
yeah, yeah.
virtually it's yeah, ruins the yarn and it's a mess and it's hard to find the stitch and
Yeah. It,
anybody who's ever done anything big with Kid Cell Ks, which is one of my favorite yarns, it's you have to have some security in knowing what you're doing. So, yeah, and Savannah Gal says she does a lot of ripping out. Yeah, you don't want to probably do your very first brioche project on a yarn that does not like to be ripped.
no, you need to be able to just a plain yarn, a plain old good wool, just
Yeah, something
turn it and
simple.
then you can step into the kid silk haze.
Yeah, I think this is like baby steps, right? Try it on something that you can tear out and start over 20 times if you need to, because this will make you cry. Even though
This
it's
is also this is the same pattern that's on the cover of the book.
oh, let's
And
go
the
back and see. Oh yeah, what a difference, huh?
yeah, and the cover, this that one was made with Madeline Tush Light.
Up here on the
And
yeah.
yeah, and this everything in this book, all of these scarves, all of these little samples, and I even made all of the little charts. I knit it all. I didn't have any knitter knit them. I knit everything except what's on the cover.
Oh,
And that
funny.
was knit that was knit by a friend of mine. And that's what they chose for the cover.
Oh, funny. And
Yeah.
Marina wants to know, are all the curves done with increases and decreases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's a simple answer to that. So this,
Yeah.
what I like about what I pulled about this is it shows you when you take two very different colors, which and you were talking earlier about how it's hard to find a color combination that doesn't look good. This is
Yeah.
not a color combination that I would normally pick out. This is not something I'd say, "Oh, I'm gonna do yellow and gray," because it's just so it's a really different color combination. So, tell us about this project because this is a really interesting kind of way it flows.
Okay, what I it might be a little bit over your head when I tell you about it, but what it is this is called syncopated brioche. And you have the knit columns on one side and you have then purl columns in between
Mhm.
that are knit columns on the other side. Well, this is where you knit gray knit columns and then you purl gray uh, you knit gray columns and you purl gray columns where the yellow is. And then you
Yeah.
knit gray columns and you purl gray columns. And then with the yellow, you purl yellow, knit yellow, purl yellow, knit yellow. And what happens is when you purl, you throw the color to the back. When you knit, you bring the yarn
Oh.
forward. So
Yeah.
you're playing with and purls on this scarf on one side,
Yeah,
which
so
is
you're getting that reverse look even on the same side, which is really cool.
and this is free yarns. These are color changing. This is the same ball of yarn that I started at two different ends, and then as the colors changed, the uh, they change all the way around.
Yeah, so you're
And
getting that light gray and dark gray, and you're getting that light gray and darker yellow, and
yeah,
yeah. Oh, how interesting. Yeah, Emily says she loves this, which yeah, and and I think the thing too is that knitters like a little bit of a challenge, and
yeah,
it's kind of interesting when you have a technique that as you watch it come off the needles, it astonishes you. So because it's
yeah,
so beautiful, and I think brioche is one of those techniques, as the knitting grows, that you become more and more enchanted with yourself
yeah,
for having produced it.
absolutely, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so
Well,
pretty.
I have to say when I was developing all of these little stitch patterns too, I mean, I really just took what I said. I just took the basic brioche stitch and I added increases and decreases. And I made a lot of little patterns that just weren't very pretty. But then every once in a while I'd make one and oh my gosh, it was just beautiful. And I mean, I don't feel like I really did anything. I just started making increases and decreases and this one worked and this one didn't. So the ones that worked are the ones that I put in the book and the ones that didn't are still on my shelf. But yeah, I mean, it was just really a yeah, I just had to try everything. That's what I had to do. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did.
It's so pretty. And Pat says she really likes this kind of technique for an infinity scarf. which I agree. And I love infinity scarves anyway because I'm one of those people that gets out of the car after being in it in slushy weather for an hour only to find out that both the ends of my scarves were dragging out the door. So, yeah. You don't have to keep track of anything on
Oh.
scarves that don't have an end, which that's just me. So, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that happened. So, and this I pulled this because it really shows one that you can do something that has a much more masculine feel to it, which, normally when I look at brioche, it's on women's things, but that with a higher contrast, really how modern that looks. And this pattern itself is very, very modern and not as girly. So you could make
Right.
something for a guy, or you could, if you just have more modern taste, this is really beautiful. And yeah, and this is actually getting love. Marina says that she loves that it's reversible, and Pat says it's just cool, and Sherry says it's sophisticated and elegant, which I agree. That was what really drew this to me. It was a very sophisticated look, for a hand knit. And so tell us about this design.
Well, this I called it icicle. I mean, because it just looked kind of icy to me. But yeah, this is where you make an increase and you make an immediate decrease. And so that's why you get those double, like white lines, those
Yeah,
diagonal double white lines, because you make an increase and then the next time you make a decrease right next to it. And then you do some plain brioche knitting and then you make an increase and a decrease immediately. And so you get those double lines with that purl column going in between. And it's almost like drawing just a double line. And this sort of increase and immediate decrease, you can use that in a lot of different ways to make a double line that just sails across the surface of the fabric.
yeah,
And
it's really nice.
yeah, it is. It's really a nice scarf. This is Madeline Tosh Light, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
love her.
and
I
it's
love her yarns.
yeah,
They're so
yeah. These are
soft.
yeah,
Yeah, and Cindy says it looks like double knitting, but you don't get this kind of depth and texture in double knitting that you get in in brioche stitch, which is what I love is how you get kind of that shadow, and when you touch it, it's definitely different,
it's
than
got a drape to it. The double knitting has a tendency to be kind of hard or kind
yeah,
of thick,
stiff. Yeah.
yeah, dense, and brioche is very drapey. It still has a lot of yeah, flow and drape to
Yeah.
it. It's
Beautiful.
nice.
Beautiful. And this, I mean, this was because it looks like it's striped, but yeah, it tells about this design. This is so pretty.
Well, this is actually it's a set of increases and decreases that you repeat this set 3 times, and then you change that and you repeat the second one 3 times. Then you go back to the first one and repeat it 3 times. I mean, it again, this was just sort of an accidental sort of design because I just thought one day, well, I'll try that, and yeah, it worked. This is called Veda's Peacock. Veda is my best friend, and uh, these are the kind of colors that she likes. This purple and gold, you could say a yellowy gold. I mean, I would never hardly ever put these colors together.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, but yet it works.
Yeah.
I think on this scarf it works very, very well.
Yeah, and this is getting yeah. So Annie says it's stunning, and Emily says it looks like texture. It's really cool, and yeah, Marina likes every design, which is beautiful. And Jonquil loves this combination. She says it does remind her of a peacock, and I
Yeah,
love that it because it has kind of that look of feather and fan,
yeah,
knitting, and it has that beautiful like scalloped edge that you get with feather and fan when you're knitting lace, but
that's right.
it's far more interesting. And with the different, because when I first looked at brioche, it looked like somebody had gone crazy duplicate stitching or embroidering all over their knitting, which was
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh,
right, because it has that look of kind of embroidered knitting when you look at the side, like where the yellow is really on this
yeah,
one, where the yellows really stands out. And because yeah, which is why when I looked at it, it was like, how the heck? Because I thought some crazy person got all these perfectly sized, perfectly placed,
Oh no.
embroidery stitches on here because I love embroidering on knits, but I wouldn't be this crazy. So, yeah, so it gets that look to it. But you're right, I would never put these colors together, and it's so nice. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and Pat says it's very exotic looking. So, Marina has a question. She wants to know if it's easy to change flat designs into circular and vice versa.
That's a really good question. I have a chapter in the back of the book that tells you how to translate the charts from flat to circular.
Oh, there you go.
Most of the designs in my book are just you really they start out with they all of these the stitch pattern part of the dictionary, they have little selvage edges, and what you do to knit it in the circular or to knit it in the round, you just don't knit the selvage edges and you just knit what's in the little repeat box. It doesn't work for every design because some of them kind of have to jog over, and you'll see some of the charts are not straight up and down, they kind of jog, and so they would have to maybe be reworked, but
Yeah.
most of the patterns in this can easily be translated into circular.
Oh,
And it actually becomes easier if it's circular.
yeah,
Yeah, because when
and
you
for
knit
most people,
flat, you
it's
knit
faster.
four. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, and if you're only looking at one side, it's probably a little less to keep track of in your head, I think, as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah,
Yeah, it
sure.
is for me when I'm only looking, especially if I'm reading a chart and I'm only thinking about the right side instructions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is nice. I don't have to like transpose it in my head. So Cindy says this texture is amazing, which I agree. And this is, you know, there was so much I loved about this. I mean, not only just kind of that in and out sort of wave design and how the corners kind of get that rounded look to them, but just the contrast where you're picking up a color in one on the yarn on the front and picking that single color up, and really how dimensional it makes this piece. Tell us about this one.
Well, this is um, one yarn that's very, very mottled. The colors are very, very. Um, the light color is it's just 1,000 different colors, and then the background, that dark color, is pretty much just a solid purpley color. But the front color, the light color, does have some of that same purple in it. So it almost like looks like those there are chunks of it sort of taken out or something like that.
Yeah.
And when you add the texture of or the swirliness of the pattern as well on top of that, you really get a yeah. I really like this scarf too. I just it's beautiful. The yarns were beautiful, and then they worked out beautifully together for sure.
Yeah, and I just love just by using that solid purple out of the back how it just kind of it almost creates that shadow in between the swirls. It's really really pretty. I just love that. So, and this my husband would wear, and he's not a big scarf guy, but I had to say my husband would wear the scarf. The colors in this are just really gorgeous. Yeah, Candy says she loves this too. So tell us about this project.
Well, this was knit with mini mochi, and mini mochi is a color changing yarn. It was two different colors of mini mochi. One was like a light beige orange to brown, and the other one was just a deeper brown, deeper orange, and deep almost to a black gray. So you have a light color and a dark color that are almost the same, meaning that they gradate very,
Yeah.
very similarly, but then but they're different. And yeah, this is again one of those sort of yeah, large patterns, where I repeated the same rows 3 times and then the same rows 3 times, which just extends the pattern up and makes for a larger motif.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
this is a really fun scarf to knit. Or I really enjoyed making this, and it's very dramatic. Yeah,
yeah, and it's getting a
when
lot of
I don't
love.
wear this, but I mean I
Yeah, it's very art. It's almost
Yeah.
like it
Well,
has a very
it's really
Frank
fun to
Lloyd.
knit.
It has a very Frank Lloyd Wright feel to it.
Yeah.
I think when I look at this, and it reminds me so much of like stained glass, and there's just it's really really elegant. Sherry I think hits it on the head. She said it's subtle and muted, and it's just
Yeah.
it's really, yeah. And Marina says it's geometric, and that I think that's why I'm getting sort of that Frank Lloyd Wright stained glass kind of feel to it. But to use two variegated yarns that
Yeah.
transition the same, both transition, but you get like so many color changes in this. It's really, really gorgeous.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to make this, and but probably
Yeah,
for
it's
me.
really fun to use these really long color gradated yarns. It's really fun to use those because you can't wait to kind of get till the next color,
Yeah,
and your
that becomes
pattern is
that magic of
yeah,
unfolding as it goes because it's a surprise. It's like, what is it going to look like when it connects up next? So
yeah.
so pretty. And yeah, if I make this, it's going to be for me though. Sorry, honey. Sorry, honey.
Oh,
But yeah, so was another example of using that really like featherweight kind of mohair
yeah.
yarn. And yeah, Pat says she loves this, which I agree. I think this is really, really, really beautiful, and just the small amount of contrast, and it's really it's just magical. Tell us about this project.
This is a triangular shawl, and so this starts at the top of the neck, and then just with that little square that everybody starts with. I don't even know what it's called. You start with a little bitty rectangle, and then you just build across, and you go back and forth, and just keep making increases. And so basically, you start out by making one shell, and then you just add another set of shells, and another set, and another set, until you have
Ah,
the shawl as the triangle as large as you want it.
yeah, and
Yeah, it's
it's beautiful. Jonquil says it's gossamer, which it's perfect word for this, and Connie loves that vintage feel to it, which yeah, you definitely kind of have that sense of, from another place and time with it, which is nice. And Sherry says
Well, it's a
this would,
very Japanese kind of pattern. It's very, the Japanese have this. It's called ocean waves. That's a very common pattern in their fabrics, and Japanese name a lot of their sort of patterns, and this is ocean wave that they have. It's
yeah,
just that's the same
so
pattern.
so
Yeah.
pretty. And Marina says it's another must make, which I agree. I would agree. And Sherry says this takes your outfit to another level, which I mean, you could throw this on over a simple t-shirt and jeans and be fully dressed and ready to go. So yeah, it's really beautiful. So I have a feeling that Nancy, you may have inspired a few people to take up brioche knitting, and I think we have some help for you if you want to go there. So first of all, you need to check out Nancy's website. It's called
Oh,
briochestitch.com, oddly enough, given what we're here to talk about. And you can see some really beautiful examples of, like, I mean, yeah, this is just a crazy, crazy beautiful technique. Even in just the single columns is so pretty, and that kind of single kind of rib look to it is so pretty. What a cutie on this wearing this scarf for you though. So you can check out briochestitch.com.
yeah, she's wearing a scarf. That's
Oh, did I lose you?
nope, nope, nope. Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
no, that the scarf that she's wearing is part of my Craftsy class, the one that someone mentioned. It's
Oh, yeah, and I think
explorations in Britain,
yeah, and
the
for
pattern
people,
that you get.
yeah, so you can take there's a explorations in brioche knitting class on Craftsy. And and actually Savannah Gal says she signed up. Craftsy runs great sales too, which is a terrific
Yes.
opportunity to like up your knitting mojo by taking a class. So, and of
Well,
course,
I should say,
go ahead.
sorry, if you type in www.craftsy.com/brioche, you'll get it for 50% off.
Yo, well, there you go.
So, so it's just craftsy.com/brioche, and then you'll get it for 50% off.
Okay, I'm signing up today. So, yeah, Elizabeth said this is so beautiful. Annie says this is very cool, which I totally and completely agree. So, and Nancy talked earlier. She's got she has for people who are on Ravelry. There's a knit along going on now, for the first of the mohair scarves that we looked
Yeah.
at today. So, oh, it's actually this first project up, Willow, on your designer page.
Mhm.
So, and if you're new to Nancy's world, then you can also check out other designs she has done, as well as other designs in this book, which of course we didn't do all of them today, but so you can kind of get an idea of other things in the book so that if you don't win it today, you can call your yarn store and get it now for yourself because you know you want it. And then the other place that you can keep track of Nancy is is on Facebook, where so Nancy posts what's going on in her neck of the Yarny universe, on her Facebook page, so you can keep up with her there. So yeah, so much going on and so much fun. And I know that people are everybody's inspired. I'm inspired to get going. So after I finish my massive yarn and book clean out here that I've been running on, I've been running on Facebook. I'm reducing my personal belongings by 50% because I have too much stuff. And so we've been taking care of it on Facebook. So once that's done, and I go back to my knitting needles where I belong, then I think this is next up for me. So, yeah. So Elizabeth says she's going to be taking that class, and Craftsy's great, which I agree. It's wonderful to be able to increase your skills, and I think for most people, learning with a video that they can back up and play and back up and play and back up and play until they get it down is really helpful and easier to learn than seeing a two-dimensional drawing. So, especially when it's something that's kind of not sort of the run of the mill basic skill. So, yeah, so I think that's a great thing. So, I'm going to give away a book today in the room for people who are coming back to watch this in the next couple of days. You'll want to check out Planet Pearl's Facebook page because we're going to give away a second copy, starting, let's see, what's today? Tuesday, starting Wednesday through Saturday, we'll be giving away, we'll have a random drawing for a second copy of the book. And of course, and then if you don't win, you're sort of on your own there. But call your yarn store because we do want to support them and see and get a and if they don't have it, make them get it because you want it. So Savannah Gal says she wants to make that mohair wrap. She's off to go practicing. So get started. But thank you so much for joining us, Nancy.
Yeah.
What's up next for you?
Actually, I'm going to teach in Munich in a few
Oh,
weeks. I
nice.
teach a lot here in Europe, so I'm going to Stockholm, Munich, I'm going to Norway, I'm going to Edinburgh, I'm going to Berlin, all this year. And yeah, I know it sounds real glamorous, but I live
I know.
here.
Yeah, but still,
Yeah.
I love
And
all.
I'll be teaching at the Vogue Knitting Live in America.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll do a Vogue Knitting live in Paris, and that would give us all an excuse to go, which would be really nice. I would go. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Savannah Gal says it does
That'd
sound
be
glamorous, except the like living in hotels out of suitcase thing, which is less glamorous.
yeah,
But yeah, so much fun. So, is
yeah.
there another book on the horizon, Nancy?
There might be. I might write. I don't know if it will be as big as this one, but I'm very interested in what are called tuck stitches, which are just another sort of a variation of a brioche stitch. And again, to my knowledge, it's always just been something that's done on machines, so I think it's time to bring it to
Yeah.
hand, you could say.
Yeah.
So that might be next.
We hand knitters deserve it. Well, we'll be looking for that, and hopefully
Exactly.
you'll come back and talk to us when that happens as well. And you're getting much love in the room and appreciation for being here today. And so it's just been a
Thank you
delight
for
to
having
meet
me.
you, and thank you for inspiring so many knitters to make beautiful things. So
Oh, thank
yeah.
you.
So thank you
It's real.
everybody for joining us. Do not leave the room if you hope to win a book. So